Meet John, a brave man who, due to an unfortunate accident, lost his right hand. His story is one that'll send chills down your spine, leaving you questioning the very fabric of reality. John, a hard-working factory laborer, was once just like any of us. He was a diligent worker, a loving husband, a doting father, and a man who held a firm belief that life was as tangible and as predictable as the machines he worked with. But one fateful day, an accident at the factory changed everything. A mishap with the machinery led to John losing his right hand, a loss that was not only physical, but also shook his understanding of the world. As he was rushed to the hospital, the blaring sirens were drowned out by his own heartbeat, pounding against his chest like a war drum. The pain was unbearable, but what was even more agonizing was the feeling of helplessness, the sudden realization of the fragility of life. During the recovery period, John showed immense resilience. He faced every day with a brave face, never letting his loss dampen his spirit. He learned to navigate life one-handed, adapting to the new normal. His life was a testament to human strength and adaptability, but little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge his very perception of reality. The doctors had warned him about phantom limb sensations. They told him he might feel as though his hand was still there, a ghostly presence that his brain refused to acknowledge as gone. They told him he might experience tingling, itching, or even pain in this phantom hand. He was prepared for all of this. He was ready to face these challenges. But what he wasn't prepared for were the cold fingers brushing against his phantom hand. An unseen entity, a spectral touch that sent shivers down his spine. The doctors hadn't prepared him for this. No one had. But no doctor's words could prepare him for the eerie experiences that awaited him. John started feeling his right hand, the one that was not there anymore. No, this was not some cruel joke of his mind, but a very real sensation known as a phantom limb. It started out as a faint tingle, a ghostly echo of a limb that once was. But soon, it began to feel more substantial, more corporeal. At first, John thought it was simply his mind playing tricks on him. He would reach out to grasp something, forgetting that his hand was no longer there. It felt as if he could still curl his fingers around objects, feel the rough texture of a brick wall, or the smooth surface of a glass. It was as if his brain had not yet accepted the fact that his hand was gone. John could feel everything with this phantom hand. He could feel the warmth of a cup of coffee, the chill of a cold beer can, the softness of his dog's fur. He could feel the heat of the sun on his phantom skin and the cold winter air biting at his fingertips. The sensations were so real, so vivid, that it was hard to believe his hand was not actually there. The strangest part of all this was that John could feel touch. He could feel the pressure of a handshake, the gentle caress of a loved one's hand. He could feel the sensation of his fingers brushing against another person's skin. It was a sensation that was both familiar and foreign, comforting and unsettling. But as time went on, the sensations became more intense. John began to feel things that were not there, like a watch tightening around his wrist, or a ring on his finger. He could feel the weight of objects in his hand, the resistance of a door handle as he tried to turn it. He could even feel pain, like the sting of a paper cut or the burn of a hot stove. And then there were the cold fingers, the chilling touch that would brush against his phantom hand, a touch that was not his own. It was a sensation that was both eerie and unexplainable, a touch that sent shivers down his spine. Little did he know, these sensations were just the beginning. One day, John felt something he couldn't explain, a touch, a cold, unfamiliar touch. This was not the phantom limb sensation he had grown accustomed to. No, this was different. It felt like fingers, cold as ice, brushing against his phantom hand. The feeling was so real, so tangible, that John found himself looking down, half expecting to see a hand where there was none. The first time it happened, he was sitting alone in his living room, the soft glow of the television flickering in the dim light. He felt it, that icy brush against his non-existent hand. Startled, he shook his arm, a futile attempt to rid himself of the chilling sensation. But the cold touch persisted, growing stronger, more pronounced. His heart pounded in his chest as a wave of fear washed over him. This was something he had not been prepared for. The doctors had warned him about the phantom limb phenomenon, the feeling that his missing limb was still there. but they never said anything about this. About feeling an unexplained touch, an invisible caress. In his confusion, John tried to rationalize it. It was just his mind playing tricks on him, he thought. The result of too many late-night horror movies, or perhaps the side effects of his medication. But deep down, he knew this was different. This was real. He tried to ignore it, to push it to the back of his mind. He busied himself with daily tasks, hoping to distract himself from the unnerving sensation. But no matter how hard he tried, the feeling persisted. The cold fingers continued to brush against his phantom hand, each touch sending chills down his spine. As the days turned into weeks, the touch became a constant presence. It was always there, a chilling reminder of his missing limb, an unexplainable mystery that consumed his thoughts. This was not a sensation. This, John realized, was something else entirely. The cold touch wasn't a one-time occurrence. It became a frequent, chilling visitor. As days turned into weeks, John found himself in the unsettling grip of an unseen presence. The ghostly fingers that caressed his phantom hand returned. Not just once, but repeatedly, each time with an intensity that was increasingly unnerving. It was a sensation that was as baffling as it was terrifying. A cold, spectral touch that seemed to defy all logic and reason. No longer was John merely dealing with the phantom sensation of a lost limb. Now he was grappling with an otherworldly entity that seemed to have attached itself to him. The unseen fingers danced across his phantom hand with such frequency that it began to invade his every waking moment, casting a long, dark shadow over his life. His nights were restless and his days filled with dread. His heart pounded in his chest as he waited for the next cold touch, for the next terrifying encounter with the unseen. His mind was a whirlwind of questions. What was this entity? Why had it chosen him? In desperation, John sought help. Doctors, therapists, even spiritual healers. He turned to them all, yet none could offer any explanation, let alone a solution. The medical professionals were baffled, the therapists were at a loss, and the spiritual healers could only offer vague theories about energies and entities. The more he searched for answers, the more elusive they became. His quest for understanding only served to deepen his fear and anxiety. The cold touch remained, a chilling reminder of his unseen tormentor. John's life had taken a turn for the bizarre. He was a man haunted not by his past, but by a phantom presence that refused to leave him. He was living in a world where the line between the physical and the spectral had blurred, where the impossible had become his haunting reality. John was living a horror story in the most literal sense. John's life had taken a turn for the weird and uncanny, and there was no going back. This wasn't just a new chapter in his life. It was an entirely different book, a book filled with inexplicable events and chilling encounters. John, once an everyday man, had his life twisted into an unending nightmare. He'd gone from a simple existence, where his biggest concerns were the mundane tasks of daily life, to a world where the supernatural seemed to be his constant companion. With the loss of his limb, he didn't just lose a part of his body, he gained an eerie connection to the other side. His phantom limb, a sensation that was supposed to be merely a quirk of the human brain, had morphed into something far more sinister. It wasn't just the feeling of a limb that wasn't there anymore, but the chilling touch of cold fingers brushing against his phantom hand that sent shivers down his spine. It was as if an invisible entity had reached out from the shadows to make contact, turning his phantom limb into a conduit for spectral interaction. John's current state was one of constant struggle. Every day was a battle to understand, to cope with the chilling encounters that left him questioning his sanity. Sleep was elusive, his nights filled with dread of the cold touch that awaited him in the dark. It wasn't just a physical battle anymore, but a psychological one. The sheer terror of the unknown was gnawing at his sanity, leaving a permanent shroud of fear. His search for answers was relentless, yet fruitless. Doctors, scientists, psychics, none could provide him with the solace he so desperately needed. Each cold touch was a stark reminder of the unanswered questions that haunted him. The doctors told him he might experience a phantom limb, but they never said anything about phantom encounters. And so, John's unending nightmare continued, a chilling testament to the mysteries of the human mind and the unseen world that lay just beyond our grasp. Y'all, we're wrapping up here, but don't you go anywhere just yet. Show some love, hit that like button. Fancy more content like this? Go on, subscribe and let that bell icon ring so you won't miss a beat. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, sharing is caring. Until next time, stay tuned.